Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Facilities Unfiltered, the built reality, where we navigate the space where theory meets real world chaos. This episode sponsored by Akita Box. I'm Josh Lau.
And I'm Nick Gedney. And Josh, I'm excited for this episode today. The name of the episode is Hero or Hazard: Why Saving the Day is Killing Your Facility. This is the classic facility management maintenance tech story. I get a call, 2 o'clock in the morning. The server room's overheating. You got to run down there. You got to get fans. Talk to IT. They're screaming at you. What's going on? But you fix the issue and you're the hero of the day. Is that really the right path in facility management, even though that's kind of how we've been set up, right? I mean, you think maintenance and you think about firefighting to an extent, but it's exhausting and there is better ways to do it. We're not downplaying anybody. I think it's kind of a victim of circumstances. I've been that person. I was that person for a long time and it takes a lot to get out of it. And I think I'm excited to address kind of and just call out what the issue is, but there are better ways to look at it.
And we've talked about this extensively, right? Even leading up to, should this be an episode or not? And I think we both got really excited in the same way, right? Because you lived it and I've walked into these situations time after time, client after client, where you hear these horror stories. And I think what it's derived from is this notion of perceived value versus actual value, right? And, if you're only providing value as a maintenance worker, right, with turning wrenches in the trenches, if you're sitting behind a desk, and I know you have a story about this that we'll dig into in a little bit, but if you're sitting behind a desk, the perceived value is, well, you're in maintenance. Why are you behind a desk? There's all these problems out here that you should be fixing. And, the actual value of people who understand your facilities and understand what it takes to maintain them shouldn't be always turning wrenches. And in fact, maybe a little bit of planning will go a long way, and a little bit of data will help us out of those trenches.
Yeah. I mean, it's messed up in a sense, to your point. I've worked in scenarios where if you're in the office and you're planning and you're invisible, well, why do we need them? Nothing's breaking. The facility's running fine. And then conversely, if you're always seen and you're running around and your hair's on fire, there's so much value, we can't lose them. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. And, I'll dig into my story right away and we can, and I think it ties right into a couple stories that you have, but, I've walked into things and, we talk about it being a technician side and an operations side. And, the cycle of abuse only works with both of them contributing, right? And the systematic approach by the organizations tended to be not investing enough in a data-driven approach to facilities, which led to, the need to be a hero in order to be a good facility manager. And frankly, that came with sacrifices, right? And, the story that I'm going to dig into, and again, it goes back to perceived versus actual value. There was a fight where the organization came in and said, look, we understand we don't have the data. We need to start getting the data. We need to do a good job. And they spent tens of thousands of dollars, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars, having metal tags made, every steam trap and valve and part and piece in the system tagged and numbered and cataloged. And the maintenance workers who had been there for 30 years only saw that level of data as an affront to their job. And it was because they felt that now by getting data, their perceived value of themselves because of being put through that cycle for so many years was the only value I have here is being the only person that knows where that special valve is, right? And so what happened, and not going to name names, but they went out and removed every single tag physically from every asset so that
No.
they were the only ones still that knew where all those things were. And I, that is a two-way street, right? Of the trust from both sides, but it is that kind of cycle abuse that we put our facility managers through, that they think that their values in being the hero, right? They think that they can't be valuable in some cases in other ways because that's just the way we've always done it. And, to the point that we always try to talk about is, there are better things, and, spending 24 hours in your facility fixing an emergency problem. There are better things to do than spending weekends in the facility making sure that something happens so that they're invisible. I know you have some
Yeah.
stories to tie on to the end of this that will put a better picture to this, but what are your thoughts? I mean,
Hey, it's hard for a tech, right? I mean, when you know the ins and outs, the bones, the skeletons of your facility, you're relied on for that, right? So that's a
right.
scary situation. Somebody coming in, tagging it, and all of a sudden now the organization is managing what they know they have instead of having to rely on you. So there's reluctancy, there's job security. And I think we as an industry sometimes don't communicate how it's going to make that job of that technician better, more
Mm-hmm.
effective, so they won't have to put in all that overtime. I can tell you this story of later on in my career. I did a lot of office time, right? And that can be
Mm-hmm.
perceived a certain way. This person doesn't know what they're doing. They don't know how to get up on a roof, which could be true in some circumstances, but maybe that there is some management skills or some data analytical skills that makes them right for that position.
Mm-hmm.
And this tech would always come in and he'd do his check-in. He said, "What are you doing? Just typing away?" "Yeah, bud, I'm sitting here for 10, 12 hours just type." And we had that kind of relationship where we could just kind of mess with each other, but he didn't he didn't understand what the computer work was. And so
Right.
one day I've been listening to his feedback. The guy knew everything about the building. He was a gold mine. Like I did an assessment, but just from listening to him talk, it provided so much value and so much context to the assessment
Mm-hmm.
that it really helped me prioritize where we should put our capital dollars. So he came in one day and I was like, "Hey, but come over, take a look at this. I'm putting together this board presentation." And what he saw was me making asks for money in places that he knew with everything in him needed more attention than the organization had been giving it. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, I came back and said, "Look, man, we got the dollars. We're going to be able to take care of these." And his perception changed immediately. It was no longer a threatening or you don't know what you're doing. It was, "Hey, we're working together and they actually have a voice."
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, all excellent points, right? And the fact that it goes to communication, right? Sometimes the left hand doesn't
Yeah.
know what the right hand's doing, and trying to understand, right? Down to that, what value do they bring? They're the boots on the ground. I mean, to your point, like, they know the things that go bump in the night and how they go bump in the night
Yeah.
and where you kick it to get it running again. There is value in all of that. And all we're trying to get to is that, the point I think both of us have talked about is we're never going to get away from it, right?
No.
The
Yeah.
need for firefighting and, you know, I'll call it in the moment hazard management, right? Like, that's not going to go away. We're going to have emergencies. We're going to have cold weather and snaps go through Texas and snap pipes and cause leaks, and all of those things. Budgets aren't going to be enough, and you're still going to have to fight those fires. But I think with a little bit of planning and a lot more data, we may at least be able to identify which things are going to become the emergency most likely, and
Yeah.
maybe have a better plan for when they happen. Maybe have an extra pool of money that we're not going to try not to touch this, but boy, that chiller's right at the end of its life and maybe 10 years past the end of its life. And we're playing an any day game now, and being able to communicate that effectively across. I think our hope is that, all those folks get a little more time at home, a few less late nights, and, a lot less emergency weekends on the job.
And if you are, in your story, if you are the one with the initiative, right? And you do have that data centric headset,
Mm-hmm.
understand that that can be intimidating. Try to look through the eyes of the facility techs that have been there, right?
Absolutely.
Because that is scary for them. That is their value.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to sit here on a pedestal and say I've done it perfect. I have failed at this many, many times, right? But if you work together with them and show how, again, they're not going to be doing those OT hours. Maybe they're still OT, but it's not emergency OT because I
Right.
don't want to take everybody's OT away. But
Right.
again, really empowering those voices because, as you said, those are the boots on the ground, and they are critical to these kinds of plans if you want to get out of that firefighter reaction mode.
Yeah. And, I think that's a great place to leave it for today. And, I think that we just want to make sure that everybody understands that there's a need for heroes. And, there will always be a need for heroes. But in the meantime, let's stop fighting the fires and start managing the heat. And thanks for listening to another episode of Facilities Unfiltered.